Let's talk Denver Nuggets. The 23-24 season didn't go exactly as they wanted, but we're still going to break down all of the information. Michael Bolton, he's here to listen in.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and this one goes out to all the fellow Rizzlers out there. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and we are available on all platforms. So thumb it up and double bang and leave your comments. NBA draft is coming up Wednesday, June 26th, 8 p.m. Eastern, live here, YouTube. I'm going to be here breaking down the draft as it happens. We did have a trade go down in the NBA today, and we had JJ Redick hired as coach of the Lakers. Not really much for me to talk about with Redick and the Lakers, I don't think. The trade, we'll do way more of that stuff through the... I'll dig into that a little bit more when we do some of the free agent shows, but Josh Giddey to the Bulls, Alex Caruso to the Thunder. I think it's a W trade for a big W trade for the Thunder. It's not terrible for the Bulls. They should have got a pick out of it, honestly. I think it helps Giddey's value. I think it helps Cason Wallace's value. As for Caruso, borderline. Like his value doesn't come from usage, it comes from minutes. I think he's going to get a pretty good role there in OKC. So I think he stays about the same, but Giddey does rise. Still, it's the Bulls, so who knows? The thing that was interesting out of it was the wording from Woj about them replacing Lonzo Ball. So we see these videos of Lonzo returning and coming back. It feels like, given the wording of that he's not, but I don't know. Also, weird thing when Kobe White was allegedly going to be a point guard. So where does Kobe White and Zach LaVine fit in? Is Zach LaVine going to be on this team? And DeRozan? And who knows? They're still a weird team, but we're not going to talk much more. We're not going to talk at all about the Chicago Bulls on this show. Because we are here, of course, to talk about the not anymore reigning NBA champion Denver Nuggets. A little bit disappointing from them, I guess, to not go back-to-back, as it is for any team that doesn't go back-to-back. But whatever, that's really hard to do. They were still very good, but their lack of depth in the end bit them. And we thought that might be a problem heading into this season after what happened in the last offseason. I think it got them in the end, but sometimes you just don't win. That just happens. It's not you're winning a championship doesn't make you infallible and always going to win every time. Losing one doesn't mean you're terrible and need to rebuild. Things just sometimes go wrong. That is the nature of any sort of sport or anything in life, honestly. And that's what hit the Nuggets this season. Let's talk about their squad. They did finish still with a really good record, obviously. 57-25. Disastrous is probably not the right word, but a loss to the Spurs down the end probably did cost them the number one seed. I picked them for 52 wins at the start of the season and then dropped them down to 50 for God knows what reason there, and they smashed through that 57-25 with a plus 5.9 net rating. 5th on offense and 9th on defense. Their preseason over-under was 52.5, so I actually went under, and I got it wrong. That's bad on me. I thought that they might just be a little bit exhausted from the playoff run, ease off a little bit on things, and they didn't. They didn't really at all, and even with injuries to Jamal Murray significantly, they were able to play through that and put up really strong numbers. So they were great in the regular season. 57 wins is fantastic. Of course, yeah, second-round playoff loss is what a lot of people will focus on, but overall they were good. Their draft picks, they've just got their own picks, pick number 28 and pick number 56. The direction of what they do in this draft will be very interesting. Last season, they decided that getting older college players was going to be able to help them now. That's not the case. It wasn't the case. They found that out. So did they change their strategy? I'm not sure. This draft is obviously very different because there's just hardly any freshmen or young guys actually in the draft. So that's not going to be as easy to find those players. But trying to get yourself a rotation player at 28 is just not a viable strategy. 56, even more so. Their most common starting group was exactly the one that you would think. Jamal Murray, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, and Big Chungus Nikola Jokic, but it wasn't their best lineup. Their best lineup was a weird one. Had Reggie Jackson at point guard, not Jamal Murray. It was a plus 38.3. Not a huge amount of possessions, but that's a huge net rating. Reggie Jackson, KCP, Christian Brown, Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic. So no Jamal Murray, no Michael Porter Jr. Adding Brown and his low usage defense role to replace Michael Porter's shooting. And then Reggie Jackson, I don't know how that worked out. I don't think there's a huge amount to take out of that, to be honest. In terms of free agency, there's 3 restricted guys. They're very, very back-end players. 2 two-way guys in Braxton Key and Jay Huff. And then Colin Gillespie, who missed his first season, played a little bit this year, looked okay maybe as a third-string point guard, but these are not breaking the bank. There's nothing super exciting about those players. Unrestricted, similarly, these are 2 very, very old guys, Justin Holiday and DeAndre Jordan. Hopefully you can do something better at backup center than DeAndre Jordan. Hopefully you can do something better than Justin Holiday on the wing. Malone tried it. He thought he would go a little bit more to Justin Holiday and see what he was able to bring. And Holiday was better than he was in that whatever disaster season he had in Dallas the year before. But these guys are not good anymore. And I think that's very, very clear. That's part of the problem we talked about, it, the lack of depth on the bench, trying to replace Bruce Brown with Justin Holiday. You're going again to the DeAndre Jordan well. Didn't really work out that well. There are some player option guys here, and these are probably 2 of the more interesting ones, and one of them is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. The other one is Reggie Jackson, who I thought his contract was a little bit too high for this coming season, but I would say that he probably lived up to that. You still don't want to rely massively on Reggie Jackson, but he was much better this season than he was the year before. But KCP is going to be the key one. If they sign him to his market value, it's going to put them in really significant tax problems and second apron type stuff. But they have to, because you can't really replace him. And if they go another situation like where they they didn't let Bruce Brown go, that's not fair, because they were limited in how much they could pay Bruce Brown, and they couldn't pay him anywhere near what the Pacers did. So that's really not fair in that respect. But they need to not make sure they cheap out here, and they need to bring KCP back. It's going to seem like an overpay, but they need to do it. As for Jackson, it would depend on what other options are available, whether he opts out or not. I think he probably would, and I wouldn't highly prioritize bringing him back, but also you might not find someone else better out there. And then Vlatko Čančar did not play this season with a torn ACL, which he suffered at the World Cup. He's got a team option. I think he's a useful enough emergency backup big. And I think, again, it seems stupid, but not having him all season, I think, hurt them a little bit in terms of their backup big man stock, because they lost Čančar, they lost Jeff Green, and they relied upon DeAndre Jordan, and that didn't really work out. So I do expect that they bring Vlatko Čančar back. They've got 2 guys that will be on expiring deals. One of them is Jamal Murray. The other one is Aaron Gordon. So, both Murray and Gordon are extension eligible this off-season. Murray will be an unrestricted free agent after this year, and Aaron Gordon has a $23 million player option after this season. So, there could be some interesting discussions made. Now, Murray's only on $36 million. That can easily go up if he doesn't take the extension. So they're in interesting spots with both of those players in terms of how it impacts, the contract year, fantasy production is not a thing, but in terms of how they position themselves and what moves they make and where things list or go with the tax and all that sort of stuff does start to really look interesting with Gordon and Murray out of contract after this season. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It is more fun. It is the most fun, in fact, and the most exciting way for you to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports, teams, and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more individual player stat projections, between 2 to 6 of them. You stick them into an entry, and bang, off you go. You can actually win up to 100 times your money by getting as little as 4 correct picks on PrizePicks. And even though the NBA season is over, you can still do it for the WNBA. You can do it for Major League Baseball, which is in full swing. Summertime's here. That is baseball time. But you can also do it for esports. Every Wednesday and Saturday, PrizePicks is offering esports contests that if you don't win them, you get your money back on Wednesday and Saturday. Counter-Strike 2, Call of Duty, League of Legends, and more. So download the app and use the promo code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That is prizepicks.com/LOCKEDONNBA. Get that first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It is that easy. All right. Let's talk Nuggets, let's talk players, let's talk starters. There's only 5 guys I'm going to cover here in this starter section because there's a very obvious 5-man grouping that we've talked about a little bit already. And we will start with Big Chungus Nikola Jokic. He will undoubtedly go at pick number 1 or pick number 2 in fantasy drafts coming up. He suffered is the wrong word, but he did drop a little bit this season. He finished 3rd in -1 rankings. Still number 1 overall on Yahoo, but Embiid was better than him per game, as was Shea. But the threat for him being number 1 doesn't come from those players. It comes from Victor Wembanyama. And I'd say in every single league that is a category league, it'll be Jokic and Wemby at 1. In every single league that's a points league, it'll be Luka or Jokic at 1. Probably not Wemby, but that would be my guess. He averaged 26 points with 12 rebounds and 9 assists, Jokic did. 1.1 threes, 1.4 steals, and 0.9 blocks. Shot 58 and 82. 62 on his 2s, 36 on his 3s. There's nothing much to really talk about there. He is 29. And I say that for a very specific reason. We will bang on, and I will bang on about it, that age 29 is the general peak of an NBA player. Jokic is now 29. Now, did he suffer a small drop this season? Like, small, yes. Was he still awesome and deserved the MVP? Absolutely. Could he be the number 1 player for the next 3 years in fantasy? Yes. Could he win MVPs all of those years? Yes. But when you hit this age 29, there might be small drops. And even you saw it here, like 82 from the line. Maybe that becomes 80.5 or 80.1 or 62.6 from 2 becomes 61.3. Just small things. And he's that good that he will not suffer gigantic declines. He won't. He will be able to maintain top 5 numbers, I would think, for 5, 6 more years. Probably 5 more years. But also, I think we understand that it probably doesn't get better. It might stay the same, but it probably doesn't get better from here. So, when we're talking, say, dynasty leagues, there's no discussion whether it's Jokic or Wembanyama. It's Wemby every day. It has to be. There's like 8 years difference, 9 years difference in age. And Jokic is there and going to start to slowly come down, whereas Wembanyama's here. And yeah, it's gone through the roof. And I think by the end of the 24-25 season, it will be clear that Wemby's number 1 and Jokic is probably number 2. I think that'll be the case after this season. But still, the reliability of Jokic is there. And I think you got to take him. He did have some nagging injuries this season. Played 79 games. Played through them, obviously. But just a few little things there. And 35 minutes is a lot. In the past, he hasn't always gotten that many minutes. So that is something to just keep an eye on. I don't think we pay much attention to these players' similarities. Year 8, Nikola Vucevic, and year 8 of Jack Sikma. We know what Jokic is. We don't need to compare him to others. We need to compare others to him. He was 99th percentile EPM, 100th percentile on crafted. Interestingly, deflections at 87th percentile. That's how he got those 1.4 steals. Now, we know that it doesn't... I'm not saying that the 1.4 steals makes him a good fantasy player. He's already a great fantasy player. But if he's at 1.0 steals, then that argument at number 1 probably falls a little bit flat. And then leans more towards Wembanyama. He got the deflections. He's got really good hands defensively. He's never going to be a shot blocker. But that's a variable category that we just pay a little bit of attention to there. The next guy we talk about is the headmaster, Jamal Murray. It was a pretty disappointing season, I would think, overall from a injury perspective for Murray. He is 27. He only played 59 games with multiple leg issues. Knee soreness, shin splints. Not great for a guy that had an ACL 2 years ago, whatever it was, 3 years ago. He only played 32 minutes a night, in large part because of those injuries. Now, per game numbers, still awesome. 37th in -1, 34th in points leagues. His ADP was 41. Can't really blame you for taking him there. That makes a lot of sense. I know he only played 59 games, but whatever. You couldn't really expect that would be the case. 21 points with 2.5 threes, 4 rebounds, and 6.5 assists, 0.9 steals, and 0.7 blocks. I'm a little worried that those 0.7 blocks aren't real, and they will fall back down, and he's never going to be a high steals guy. Also, really good assist numbers for Jamal. He's not always been a 6.5 player. He shot 43 on his threes, 51 on his 2s for 48 overall. It's part of the reason why I really don't like field goal percentage as a category. Jamal Murray is highly efficient, yet for fantasy comes in as a below average player, which is obviously insane. He's not below average at efficiency, he's well above it. But field goal percentage is a number that everyone has tracked for 50 years, so therefore it's the category that's there. And it is an annoying thing. Great at the line, fantastic. His best 2 comps for this season were year 6 of Kemba Walker, that's Kemba in Charlotte, In year 7 of Kyrie, that's Kyrie in Boston. 2 point guards who score and shoot threes and do it efficiently but aren't super, super high assist players. That does make sense with defensive deficiencies. He was 94th percentile EPM, 91st in crafted. Honestly, still a very, very good player. What I would love to see for a guy that's shooting 43% on threes is take more of them. Like 37th percentile in three-point attempt rate. Bro, take more threes. Why are you not taking more threes? And I know that he drives and he likes the mid-range, all that sort of stuff. These 2.5 threes should easily be 3.5. Make him a 24-point scorer, makes him a top 25 player. He will never be a second-round guy unless that ups. He's never going to be an 8-assist player unless Jokic is out for a year or something, because he's not going to get steals. It all comes down to hit more threes. Take more threes, hit more threes. Well, not even hit more, just take more, because then they'll come. And that'll bump a lot of what he does up. So, yeah, really good. The injuries are a concern. The persistent lower body limb injuries are an issue for sure. You do not take him round 2 or even round 3. He's going to be a guy that I expect probably goes either the end of round 4 in the 40s or maybe outside the top 50 because of the injuries. But if those 32 minutes, if he's healthy, goes to 34. If he takes an extra 3 a game, 1.5 threes a game, then we're banging in inside the top 30. I like the steps forward. It's a little buried by some of the negatives, but I do think that overall, it was very impressive this season from their headmaster, Jamal Murray. Let's go to Michael Ponder Jr., the big fella. Poop biscuit legend. He's only 26. Porter, he played 81 games. Imagine going into a season. I cannot wait to draft Michael Porter because he's a beacon of health. He's never going to get hurt. He's going to play games. I love him for his totals. But that happened. He played 32 minutes a night, played 81 games. Games played are a variable stat that you cannot predict. He was 89th in -1. Yahoo total ranks will tell you he was 39th, which of course is not real, has no bearing on reality whatsoever. He was 89th in points seized. He was drafted at 83. There was a time I thought, maybe I'm wrong, that some early rankings had him in the 50s, which never made any sense to me. But overall, he was drafted in the right spot. 17 points with 2.7 dribbles, 7 rebounds, and then a Ryan Anderson-esque 1.5 assists, 0.5 steals, and 0.7 blocks. At least he beat the Anderson line, which I believe... The Anderson line is something that I've never actually said that word out loud, but now it's in my head. But I've always had this. It was when you average less than 2 combined assists, steals, and blocks. So he's above that. He's at 2.2. Actually, maybe I should go and look at this because I'm making up a term here. Maybe I'm unfairly lambasting Ryan Anderson, but I'm pretty sure he had multiple seasons of being under the Anderson line. Let's have a look as we do on-the-fly reconnaissance here. So we had, holy crap, we did. He had a 1.5 combined assists, steals, and blocks in his first year in Houston. Holy crap, he had a lot of these, man. What on earth? 1, 2, 3. Let's talk about the years when he was a starter then. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 years of being under 2 combined assists, steals, and blocks as a starter, Ryan Anderson. That's it, the Ryan Anderson line. That is when you were a points, threes, and rebounds player, and that is what Porter barely avoids. Oh, not barely. He got to 2.7. I think I said 2.2 before. Got to 2.7. That's a little bit over. Anyway, big tangent. He shot 58 on 2s and 40% on 3s, so obviously some really good shooting numbers there from Porter. And the best comps for him were actually year 6 and year 5 of Lauri Markkanen, which is the 22-23 season and the 21-22 season. That makes a little bit of sense, except that Markkanen's a high usage player. Not a passer, not a creator for others, not a defender, not a rim protector, strong rebounder at the 3 and the 4. All that makes sense. It's just Markkanen does it in a high usage role. And if Porter was in Markkanen's role in Utah, for example, would he put up numbers similar to Lauri? Probably not quite there, but the shape makes a lot of sense. 84th percentile EPM, 83rd in crafted, and this is what, again, is going to hold him back. 11th percentile free throw rate. That's not his job. Would he ever be able to do that, given the way the injuries have sort of impacted him? I'm not sure. That would take a big leap forward. To me, he is a interesting guy in this 80 to 100 zone who is not really likely to change from here. And the thing you got to look at and go, is there any scenario where I can see Michael Porter Jr. playing 81 games or more again? And the odds would suggest probably not. Or not even again, just for next season. You've got to look at that and go, it can't get better. It's probably going to get worse then. And do the numbers justify me taking it around per game number? Probably not. Fit his role perfectly. The Nuggets aren't blowing it up. He's not being moved, so nothing really changes in that respect. And that leaves him in that probably 95 to 100 zone, I would guess. Definitely not inside the top 40. Today's episode is also brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you are hiring for a small business, maybe it's one you own, maybe it's one you do the hiring for. Well, you need to make sure you get the right candidates, the quality candidates in front of you immediately, because that is the key. That is the lifeblood of a small business. It's the staff. If you get it wrong, well, your business is in real trouble. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. It's not just another job board. LinkedIn Jobs is a network of professionals, over 1 billion of them. See LinkedIn, and you get your job out there in front of the right people. In fact, small business owners report that within 24 hours, they get a qualified candidate replying to their job 86% of the time. That makes hiring so easy. There's 2.5 million small businesses already using LinkedIn Jobs for hiring, and it's constantly finding ways to make that process easier, including ways to help you write out job descriptions. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That is linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, so Porter is done. Let's move on to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I think, somewhat controversial player in the fantasy space. He's 31, like I said, a free agent with a player option, which he'll decline and he'll sign for 80 plus million, I'm guessing. He played 76 games and 32 minutes a night. His -1 ranking is 137th. His Yahoo ranking is 69th. Giggity. You know what 69 means? Well, do you? I hope so. Or maybe if you're too young, I hope not. Either way. But 69th would suggest to you that he is in the top half of rostered players in a 12-team league. That's not true at all. That is why, again, the total ranking numbers are garbage. This suggests that every single team should have had Kentavious Caldwell-Pope rostered all season long for his 10 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.3 steals, and 1.6 dribbles. Does that sound like a guy that you wanted to have rostered all season? Absolutely not. Under no circumstance. Look, I even look at 137th -1 and go, really? Seems maybe high. He, to me, is very much in the Kevin Huerter, Harrison Barnes group. The HBTG, the Harrison Barnes tactical group of guys that you go, but why? What do I care? There's no upside in this. It's just plodding along, doing nothing. He shot 41% on threes. That's really good. He was below average in field goals at 46%. He was 89% from the line. That's great. Doesn't take any of them. Even his threes, he doesn't take them. 1.6 dribbles is below league average. In fact, every single one of his categories outside of free throw percentage at 89 on low volume and steals is below league average. He's just not a 12-team league player. His comparisons, Francisco Garcia year 5 and Courtney Lee year 8. Courtney Lee, almost the perfect descriptor. Those of you who remember Courtney Lee back in his Knicks and Grizzlies days, he'd go out there, he'd defend well, he'd play 30 minutes and he'd have 6 points with 1 3. You go, man, Courtney Lee was really great. So it's like Danny Green without the defense. And KCP gets these bumps through the way that the metrics work, which are, again, a fantastic illustration of why you don't buy into that. You just don't. If you disagree with that, that is cool. And I could say, well, draft KCP in the top 70, and you would say, I don't have to because everyone passes on him, so I'll grab him late and I'll enjoy top 70 value. And then I would say to that, it's not really top 70 value. But this is just the guy that I have no interest in drafting. Streaming in, absolutely always going to be worth a look. Hey, maybe he gets me 5 threes during the week, 6 threes during the week, whatever it is. But there's just no upside really in a lot of this other stuff. Is he a good player still? Yeah, really good. 78th percentile EPM, 90th on crafted. He doesn't ever touch the ball. 25th percentile offensive load. And we can see that. He averaged 10 points. He doesn't get assists. He doesn't rebound. He doesn't do anything. Gets some steals. That's it. Still love him as a player, though. I know it doesn't sound like it, but I do. Aaron Gordon, the last of the starters. Gordo is a really interesting sort of a player. He's hitting that peak age 29 now. He played 73 games, but only 31 minutes a night. That is fewer minutes than Murray, who was injured a lot, fewer minutes than back injury legend Michael Porter Jr., fewer minutes than KCP. The lowest minutes of any of the starters. That's a little curious. He finished 139th in -1, 118th on Yahoo, 95th in points league. So obviously a better points league guy than categories. His ADP was 118. He very much verges to me on that KCP, why do I bother drafting in categories? Points leagues, you absolutely do draft him. But he's very much on the borderline there because we know that -1 looks at even the bad free throws, which are 66%, and takes them away. Now, in the season before, I think he was like 90th in -1 because his field goal percentage was way higher. But he's a guy that sort of rebounds okay, doesn't take threes, doesn't get defensive stats, sort of passes okay. There's nothing great there. Become a 60% field goal guy, hit some threes at 33% and get one a game, get 1.2 steals and a block, then we're talking a much better guy. But he didn't. So we sort of look at him as a fringe back-end player that, again, we get into that spot. We're in round 11, round 12. Why are we taking Aaron Gordon in that position? He averaged 14 points with half a three, 6.5 rebounds, good rebounds, 3.5 assists. That's actually really good. But 0.8 steals, 0.6 blocks, 56 and 66 is his percentages. The two-pointer numbers, fantastic. We know what he does. Jokic feeds him, he dunks it. But the bad three-point shooting brings the overall field goals down. His best comps, year 9 of Chris Webber and year 9 of Derek McKay. But he was 90th percentile EPM and 92nd on Crafted because he's still really good. He's a very good defender. He's a really good offensive player in his role. That just doesn't mean that it translates massively to fantasy. Now, let me ask you the question, those of you who are still watching. Would you prefer in a category league, I know in a points league there's no debate, but in a category league, would you, because they finished like 2 spots difference in -1 ranks, would you prefer Kentavious Caldwell-Pope or would you prefer Aaron Gordon with the general caveat, well, it depends on what my team looks like? I would much rather take Aaron Gordon because if that 56% from the field goes to 60, if 0.8 steals become 1.1, and then we're smashing KCP. But I look at KCP's numbers and go, what actually is changing here? What's realistic to change? And I don't really see much. I would love for Aaron Gordon, with his elite athleticism, to attempt to block more shots, especially when the other guy that's out there at center is not blocking shots either, and that's Nikola Jokic. But he is 24th percentile in contesting shots at the rim. He's never been a good shot blocker, Aaron Gordon. This goes all the way back even to his days in college, where we looked at it and go, has the defensive scheme of, I don't remember the coach of Arizona, his name, but he's got like a reputation of a guy that sort of has a weird scheme that limits defensive stats. But maybe not. Maybe Aaron Gordon just is that player. And he just never contests enough shots to really make a difference there. 73 games, 31 minutes. I guess the other thing I look at with Gordon is say, well, is there a chance we can get more minutes out of him? A little weird that he only sits at 31. But why did they need more? They won 57 games. Is it just the energy that he has to play out? The defensive responsibilities means that they want to preserve his body a little bit more. And if that is the case, I respect that. Let's talk about some other players of note. Got 4 guys we're going to bang through here. And number 1 is the aforementioned Reggie Jackson, who I thought was trash in their championship run. And I thought improved a lot. Not back to old Reggie Jackson levels, but was better. For fantasy, though, it doesn't really matter. He played every game. He played 22 minutes. He's 34 years of age. He was 251st in -1, 220th in points, averaged the same points as KCP. 1.9 rebounds, that's terrible. Half a steal is bad. 4 assists, shot 43 and 81, 36 on his threes. Honestly, when you compare those numbers to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, outside of 0.5 steals versus 1.4 steals, they're the same. Like, realistically, they're not much different at all. He was a usable, occasional stream fill-in for points and threes and some assists when Jamal Murray was out, and I think we don't look at him any differently here. His best comps were players that you go, yeah, that makes sense for where Reggie is. Year 10 of Aaron Brooksy, and year 12 of Earl Boykins. Yeah, that's what he is, a serviceable backup point guard. And if I had to do the list, and I won't, maybe I will, of the best backup point guards in the NBA, he's probably, where is he? Top 20? Is that a ringing endorsement? Like, he was bottom 5 probably the year before, but like, he's 34 also. Like, do we expect him to stick at this number, or does he fall back a little bit? It's a lot of talk on Reggie Jackson, who's probably going to be irrelevant for most of the year, but this guy's not irrelevant for a couple of reasons. It's Payton Watson. Last season around this time, or last year around this time, me and Matt Lawson got on a show. We talked about underrated dynasty guys, and we both picked Payton Watson as a guy to talk about. And this was before free agency, and we thought, yes, Denver is probably going to lose some players, and they're going to kick him into a rotation role, and we want to see where this goes. Well, that did happen. They did kick him into a role. They did lose Jeff Green, and Payton Watson played basically every night. Well, he did. He played 80 games, which is more than what he did in his college time. I know that's easy to say, but he did nothing. He's actually, for where he was picked, given his college production, an unbelievably good draft pick. He played 19 minutes. He's still not 22, but still, overall, I thought it was a little bit disappointing from Payton. It is a step going from never playing in college and scoring 3 points a game to being out of the rotation as a rookie and then starting to contribute as a rookie on a championship team. Big step. And then becoming an every single night, 20-minute-a-night rotation player in the NBA in year 2 at age 21. These are big steps. But what we need in a fantasy perspective is for that step to probably be elevated a little bit more. So just pull back a little bit. I still think that he can be an unbelievably impactful defender. I worry about where the offense goes. But defensively, I'm super interested. In 19 minutes, he averaged 7 points. He averaged 3 rebounds with half a 3. But he averaged 1.1 blocks with half a steal. And let's take this to 30 minutes. That's 50% increase there. Let's get that to 1.7 blocks. Pretty interesting for a power forward. Small forward. He's a power forward, though. And it's like 10 points. It's 4.5 rebounds. It's 1.5 assists, but it's 1.7 blocks, 1.6 blocks. The shooting is going to be the problem, though. 29.6% from 3, which leads him to 47% overall. 67% only from the line. He hit 55 on his 2s, but realistically, he needs to be getting at 63. He needs to be dunking, laying it up, finishing in close. He needs to get to 34% from 3 to at least maintain the level. He needs to become a player that can have a serviceable shot. The other thing is that he needs the opportunity, and that's going to be through Aaron Gordon leaving in free agency, being traded, being hurt, or just completely falling off a cliff. And even though Aaron Gordon has a player option after this season, I'm not really sure that's on the cards. So it's still a long hold for Payton. There's no clear path to minutes more than the 19 he had. Could they work him into a small ball center? Yeah, I'm not really sure that works. Small parts, yes, but not overall. He needs to be better offensively. He needs to rebound a lot better as well. His best comps were like Darko Milicic, year 3, and Darius Baisley, year 4. That's like not great. Both of those guys realistically were only contributing in blocks. He needs to be way better in efficiency, Payton Watson. He needs to shoot a lot better, and he needs to do something else that isn't blocks. I still have some faith, but I did hope for a little bit more. 55th percentile EPM, 20th on crafted is bad. What I love, though, is his rim defense is 98th percentile. That's fine. He is awesome at that. Now we need the other parts of his game to come through. Still really do believe in him for Dynasty, but maybe it's 3-4 years away because the path to the easy minutes here, unless something weird does happen with Gordon and he opts out and he leaves, which I guess is possible, or Watson gets traded because he's, hey, I'm 3 years in and I'm not playing enough. I don't really see that's the case, but it does feel like it's a little bit away here for old Payton. Let's talk about Christian Braun. Let's first talk about the fact that he doesn't know how to pronounce his surname, but then let's talk about him as a player, a guy that was incredibly overrated. Like, just amazingly overrated as a fantasy producer. One of those guys that people saw contribute as a rookie in the finals, and he was really good as an on-court player. And some people expected Bruce Brown is gone, and this means a top 80 season, and I just never believed it. And I would say that Brown, I don't know if he regressed. He probably did. He at the very best stagnated. He played all games, 82 of them, 20 minutes a night. He's 23. the drafting of Christian Braun and the success of Christian Braun as a rookie, I think, influenced some of Calvin Booth's drafting strategies to go for these older college players, thinking they would all have that impact. Of course, they didn't, because that's just not a thing that happens as a regular occurrence. Brown's fantasy profile is not very good. He was 303rd this season. He averaged 7 points with 0.8 threes, almost 4 rebounds, 1.6 assists, putrid steals and blocks. 46 and 69 is his percentages. He hit 38 from 3, but he couldn't finish as a 2-point guy. What is interesting is that the best comp for Christian Braun was year 3, that's Orlando, year 3, Aaron Gordon. We know what Gordon developed into. Gordon is way bigger, much better cutter, much better defender. Probably a better passer too. So I don't really think that the level that Gordon's been able to get to is achievable for Braun. The other comp is a bloke by the name of Kevin Loader. Loadster. Year 1 of him, his rookie year. 42nd percentile EPM for Braun, 19th percentile on Crafted. I would just say that I think that Christian Braun's season was pretty disappointing, especially offensively. His rim finishing numbers fell away. He shot better from 3, but overall, I just don't think that he was all that good. He played extra minutes. He played, slightly higher usage. We are heading into year 3, but I'm not convinced we're ever going to be talking about Braun as the easy thing to do is, could he replace Kentavious Caldwell-Pope? I don't think so. He doesn't have the defensive steal ability that KCP does, although his steal rate as a rookie was much higher than this season. He doesn't have the shooting ability or the shooting volume of KCP, even though the volume for KCP is not super high. And KCP is still not someone who is elite at performing that role that is a great fantasy contributor. So I don't really see much excitement in Christian Braun, honestly, as we move forward. The last guy I do want to talk about is one of those players that I've mentioned before. One of the older rookies that they picked. They ended up with 3 picks in about a 7 or 8 pick zone in last year's draft. The 2 guys I'm not going to talk about because they never played were Hunter Tyson and Jalen Pickett. Julian Strather is the one who did play. Strather is 22. He played 50 games. He had a knee injury that missed some of that time, 11 minutes a night. He had a huge game in the preseason. There were some people who, honestly, there were some consideration in drafting Strather. It never really made any sense to me because where was he going to play? And I'm not really sure that he had a fantastic fantasy-friendly game. And again, it's just another indication, just ease up on what you think on rookies. And that is going to be an intriguing thing for this year's rookie class as well, where people are still going to go too high on it, and we may not have 3 guys in the top 100 this season. Might only have 2. Can't even look at Strather's G League numbers because he only played 2 games there. He took 11.5 threes per game in those 2 games, but he only played 2 games. So 4.5 points in 11 minutes. Let's triple these numbers. That gets you to 12 points, 2.4 threes, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal. He shot only 37% from the field, which includes under 30% from 3. It is very hard for rookies who aren't very good, even if they're older, to contribute in the NBA. Even though Strather was like a 40% three-point shooter at Gonzaga, a high-level rebounder there, doesn't matter. It just isn't an easy thing to do. And it's not something we should ever expect. Now, I think that 37% from the field, 59 on 2s and 30% on 3s is going to go hugely up. If he came in and averaged 51 from 2, 36 on 3s, 44, 46 overall from the field, absolutely, totally within reason. But like we talk about with Braun, like we talk about with Payton Watson, no one in front of him is leaving. Now, yes, Michael Porter Jr. probably doesn't play 81 games. Strather will get better, and I think you'll see that's the 2-3-4 combo. Strather, Watson, Braun. No more Justin Holiday. But I also don't think that this is a high-level, long-term dynasty guy. I am interested that his number 1 comp was Andrew Wiggins year 4, but also remember, Andrew Wiggins year 4, terrible fantasy player. Played a lot of minutes, didn't do anything. Couldn't rebound, couldn't assist, didn't get steals or blocks, didn't shoot well. A terrible category league player. Strather had quite a bit of hype heading into this season. Obviously unfounded. He had the occasion, and it's always one of the best examples of that sort of a player, or that, not even that sort of a player. The situation where someone comes out, we know them because they played at Gonzaga. They have I'm trying to find the exact game that it was just to give you more information. But he had this crazy game where he shot 9 of 9 from 3 or something. Let's have a quick look, see if I can find it. He had a game Monday, December the 11th, where he went 6 of 11 from 3. And he had another game on November the 6th where he went 5 of 9. Yep, so he had some really hot games. And then in the preseason, 3 games in a row, 4 of 7, 4 of 8, 4 of 9 from 3. And that's where people started to get excited. But it's always worth remembering. You can't hit 50% plus from 3. You can't do it. It will not happen. You will not be able to maintain it. And obviously, even though he had a couple of those big games, which gets the spotlight, and he does it in short periods of time, that it's not sustainable. Be really discerning. I'm always up for get ahead of it, take a flyer. But understand, what is the actual likelihood of this stuff working? And with Strather, the answer was it's not. And I do think as we push forward with him, that the likelihood of it coming to fruition probably isn't there either. Back to the player comps, Andrew Wiggins, great. The second comp is rookie year BJ Boston. Now, I like BJ Boston. Not an established rotation player at all. Strather, interesting. Future starter, don't think so. And then the other guys were Jalen Pickett, Hunter Tyson, John Ray Jordan, Zeke Naji, who just looked terrible. And I'm not really sure where they go from there with him. But that's all the guys I want to talk about here with the Nuggets. We've got 2 more teams to do, the Thunder and the Celtics, and they'll be coming in the next couple of days. And then we move into, maybe there'll be stuff interspersed there. More mock drafts, more big boards, and the draft happens, which is exciting. I'm excited for, even though it is a bad draft, it's still fun to have an NBA draft. I like it. We just got to be really cautious on the way we evaluate these guys. Rookie dynasty drafts is going to be really intriguing. Be really cautious about it. Don't be cautious with giving me a thumb up, though. Go and do it. And leave your comments down below. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.